Hello students, so today I will explain different types of principles under WTO. Right, so these are the three principles. One is most favored nation principle, another one is national treatment, another one is free trade principle. Okay, so often students find difficulty in understanding these topics. So today I will explain these topics. So the first one is most favored nation status or principle. Okay. So most favored nation status, or we can say principle. So what is this? So under the rules of WTO, every member country of WTO should grant this status, most favored nation status, to the other WTO member countries. That means if we take India, which is a member of WTO, so India should grant this status, most favored nation status, to all the remaining members of the WTO. So that is one point here. So every member country, every WTO member country should grant most favored nation status to all remaining members, to all remaining member countries. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? Suppose if any country, let us take India, has given some advantage, with respect to trade to another country, let us take Bangladesh. So if any country has given some advantage with respect to trade to other country, the same advantage has to be given by this country to all the remaining members of the WTO. Right. So when I said advantage with respect to trade, what is the meaning of that? Suppose let us take the Bangladesh is producing apples. And the cost of this apple is 20 Indian rupees. And India is importing these apples. So while importing these apples earlier, so India has put a 2 rupees import duty on that apple. Therefore, the cost of the Bangladesh apple in India became 22 rupees earlier, right? Now, India has given advantage to Bangladesh, that is, it eliminated this 2 rupees import duty on that apple. Therefore, now the cost of the Bangladesh apple will be 20 rupees only in India. That means earlier Indians has to give 22 rupees for one Bangladesh apple. Now they are getting one Bangladesh apple for 20 rupees. That means they are encouraged to purchase more Bangladesh apple because the cost of the Bangladesh apple in India got decreased. Yes or no? Yes. So therefore, the demand for this Bangladesh apples will be increased. Right. That means the farmers in the Bangladesh are going to get benefited. Yes or no? Yes. So that is the advantage given by the India to the Bangladesh. If India has given that advantage to the Bangladesh, the similar type of trade advantage should be given by India to all the remaining WTO member countries. So that is this most favored nation treatment principle. That means if a country give advantages with respect to trade for one country, the same advantages has to be given, to all the remaining member countries of the WTO. So this is according to this principle. Students, but so there are certain exemptions there are certain exemptions under this most favored nation treatment principle. So what are those exemptions? So the first one here is free trade agreements. Free trade agreement, okay, FTAs. So what is this free trade agreement? See, India, I'm taking an example here. India signed a free trade agreement with the UAE, United Arab Emirates. So FTA. There is a name for this free trade agreement. It is called Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. So what is this free trade agreement? So this is a bilateral free trade agreement. So there is a bilateral or mutual advantage for these two countries. What is the type of advantage? See, India is importing many goods from the UAE. So earlier there is an import duty on those goods, but under this agreement, the import duty is going to be zero or very less import duty for some goods. Similarly, UAE is importing many goods from the India. So earlier there are certain import duties. Now under this agreement, so the import duty on those goods will be zero or very, very less. That means, so under this free trade agreement, so both countries are going to get advantage, benefited. Yes or no? Yes. So WTO allows its member countries to sign such bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements. Yes. But it also says that, so these type of advantages should be given to remaining WTO members as well gradually over a period of time. That means it says that you should give these type of advantage to the WTO members as well, but it did not put any time limit, right? So that is one important point. So this is the free trade agreement. So another one here is, okay, another exemption under the most favored nation status principle is security clause. Security clause. So what is this security clause? See students, okay. So India has given most favored nation status, most favored nation status to Pakistan in 1966, right? So after the Pulwama attack, okay, in the year 2019, okay, India withdrew or cancelled the most favored nation status to the Pakistan. Cancelled the most favored nations to the Pakistan. What is the meaning of this? That means under this status, the goods imported from the Pakistan, okay, there will be very less import duty or zero import duty. But after this status has been cancelled, there is an import duty, okay, so on the goods imported from the Pakistan. So this is under security clause. So this is one exemption. So the another exemption which is important here is generalized system of preferences scheme. Generalized preferences scheme. Generalized system of preference scheme, it is GSP scheme. Right. So what is this? See, under WTO rules, this is applicable only to least developed countries. Least developed countries. So that means the other WTO members, other means other than least developed countries. So other WTO members can provide unilateral advantage. Unilateral advantage to the least developed countries. So what is the meaning of unilateral advantage? Earlier I have told you free trade agreement. So it is a bilateral agreement, both countries are going to get benefited. But this is not the case with the generalized system of preference scheme. So here the least developed country is going to get benefited, not the other WTO member country, if you take for example USA. So that means when the goods are imported from the least developed countries, okay, there will be very less import duty or zero import duty. This is in order to encourage the LDC or in order to benefit the least developed country here. So other WTO members, that means they are advantage giving members or preference giving country. So in this example, as I told you, USA, okay, so they had a freedom, okay, to identify which country is a least developed country and what are the products that can from that least developed country that can be covered under this scheme. Okay, so this is the generalized system of preference scheme. So remember this point here. So it is only unilateral advantage. Okay, and this country, as I told you, USA has the freedom to identify what should be the products upon which the import duty should be reduced or should make zero, and which countries can be given advantage under this scheme. Okay, so this is about the most favored nation status principle and the 3 exemptions. Students, understand the most favored nation status should be given by the WTO member country to all the remaining member countries. That means if a country gives some trade advantage to another country, the same trade advantage has to be given to the remaining WTO member countries. And of course, there are 3 exemptions. One is this generalized system of preference scheme. Another one is security clause and another one is free trade agreement. Right. So next we will take up the second principle under WTO, which is national treatment. NT principle. So what is this national treatment? Okay, suppose I'll take an example, India and Bangladesh. As I have told you, okay, so we are importing the Bangladesh apples, and there are apples that are also produced in India, and we are importing the Bangladesh apples, right? Yes. So India, whatever the treatment given to the locally produced apples, remember, whatever the treatment given to the locally produced apples should given the same treatment or same preference to the imported goods as well, whether they are goods, services or intellectual property rights. Okay, so the country should treat the locally produced goods, services and intellectual property rights, okay, in equal manner to the imported goods, service and intellectual property rights. So whatever the facilities, whatever the treatment given to the locally produced one, the same treatment has to be given here. Often students confused about one point here, as I told you earlier. Suppose if this apple cost is 20 Indian rupees in Bangladesh and India has imposed a 2 rupees import duty on this apple, now the cost of this apple will become 22 rupees. But we are not putting any type of duty similar to the import duty on the locally produced apple. Yes or no here? Yes. Isn't this the import duties are violation of the national treatment? No, no. So remember one point here. So the national treatment principle comes into the picture once the goods when already imported into the domestic territory, or the national treatment principle comes into the picture after the goods imported into the domestic territory. Here, from here the national treatment principle comes into picture after the goods imported into the domestic territory. So import duty is not a violation of the national treatment principle, right? So, so this is about this NT principle. Now, we will look at the free trade principle of WTO. So, free trade principle of WTO. So, what is the meaning of this? See, it says that all the WTO member countries should reduce and ultimately make zero the barriers for the free trade. So, what are the barriers for the free trade? What are the barriers for free trade? So, the barriers can be studied as trade barriers, okay, non-trade barriers, or we can say tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, okay. So, barriers for free trade. So, what are the different types of barriers here? So, we can say tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, So, these are the two types of trade barriers, right? So, what are tariff barriers? These are customs duties. So, what are customs duties? Okay, duties imposed on imports and exports. That means export duty and import duty. So, these are custom duties. So, these are tariff barriers under the trade barriers. So, what are non-tariff barriers, students? For example, import ban is a non-tariff barrier. That means, suppose we are importing some goods from the Pakistan and suddenly India has put a ban on the import of certain products from the Pakistan. Ban on the import of certain products from the Pakistan. So, this will impact the trade between the two countries. Therefore, this import ban is a non-tariff barrier under the trade barrier. Similarly, import quota. Import quotas. So that means suppose we are importing some goods from the Pakistan and India has put a restriction that only this much tons of those goods can be imported. So beyond that limit, they cannot be imported. If such a condition is there, that condition will be a non-tariff barrier, and that is according to import quota. Okay. So it can be in terms of monetary terms as well. That means only this much valued goods should be imported, more than that should not be imported, or only this much quantity of goods should be imported, more than that should not be imported. Okay, such type of import quotas comes under the non-tariff barriers under the trade barriers. Okay. So this is about the free trade principle. So under this principle, WTO says that such type of trade barriers should be decreased and eliminated, okay, gradually. So this is about the different types of principles under WTO. Thank you.